You lost them, you imbecile!
And I know what I'm doing. This is a shortcut.
You knew what you do. You knew what you do. If I had a penny for every time you said that, I wouldn't be needing this gold.
Those are the trucks.
I told you it was a shortcut.
They're crossing the border now. We can't follow them any farther. Where did Haggard go?
There's gold in them hills!
Shit, that's a neutral zone. Haggard, fall back!
He can't hear you, Sarge. If he could, he wouldn't listen.
I hate to say this, but we have to go and get him back.
Do we really have to go and get him back? I mean, have to?
Move out.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Battlefield Bad Company. And here we are trying to pull Haggard out of the fire after he just invaded a country on his own. Well, you know Haggard. This is where the game starts to get a little bit tough. Honestly, I mean, the first couple of levels are interesting enough, but they do sort of feel like a slow introduction to the game. You do start getting some actual interesting scenarios further into the game like this. It's also worth noting that whenever you start a new level, no matter what happens, you always sort of reset to your M416. And that also means that you lose any kind of secondary weapon you have. So I picked up the mortar there since, you know, I've got an empty slot, so may as well carry it around. It's pretty useful, honestly. One thing I haven't really talked about is the collectible weapons that you can get. You probably noticed that I'm using the M416 for quite a while. One of the reasons is just because, you know, a lot of the weapons within the similar classes, like machine guns or submachine guns, are fairly similar. There's not a huge amount of variation between them. The other thing is just so that I can, you know, concentrate on looking at other aspects of the gameplay before I start switching up different weapons. I'll start to use more weapons as we go further into the game.
Enemy tank spotted.
And here I was trying to sort of edge out onto the roof far enough that I could use the mortar on that tank, but unfortunately I couldn't quite get an angle on it. You can actually fire the mortar just straight at, you know, just the ground. You don't have to target a tank or anything, which is why the mortar strike kind of missed it there. I was lucky enough, but it looks like the tank didn't quite take enough damage. Fortunately, the mortar doesn't take too long to recharge, and I can just queue up another batch here. You will notice though that if you actually stay out and the tank has already seen you, it takes away your health pretty damn quickly. I mean, it's still not sort of ultra realistic levels where a couple of shots and you're dead, but you still got to duck back into cover pretty quickly. Again, I'm trying to find the guys in the buildings where I can't exactly see them, but in the end you do actually have to just keep running and keep going. The other useful thing about the mortar strike is that you can actually use it pretty well for just attacking infantry. I called down a mortar strike on that building to sort of clear out anyone inside it, because it pretty much kills them all. But unfortunately I didn't get a good look at it because they took out the bridge from under me. It is worth noting that the enemies do use explosives when they have them available. And the destruction aspect of the gameplay does actually, you know, cut both ways. If you pay attention and there's not too much going on, then you can actually hear the enemies sort of crying out. There's someone in that house over there that I didn't actually notice on the radar.
Infantry spotted!
Fortunately though, I have sort of a little difficulty trying to locate him. He's obviously in the house there somewhere, but I can't decide if it's worth actually going back to, properly kill him or not. Honestly, if he's not dead now, then it's just not worth the hassle.
So, Haggard had pretty much single-handedly invaded a neutral country. Not the best move.
Is this your idea of fun, Haggard?
Well, yeah.
May I ask you why?
The gold, didn't you see it? I mean, Sweetwater can never swallow a piece that big.
Just shut it, Hag. Give me one good reason that I should not send your ass to jail.
Well, because you love me, Sarge. In a plutonic way.
Bravo 1 Charlie, this is Mike 1 Juliet, over.
Mike 1 Juliet, this is Bravo 1 Charlie, over.
I hope you have a very good explanation for this, Sergeant, over.
It was my call. We had to, retaliate a hostile. A threat. Over.
Just get yourselves back to base, over.
That's fine with me. I was planning to go fishing anyway. Over.
You're facing court-martial. I don't think you're gonna go anywhere for at least 9 to 12 months. Out.
Shit.
That was bad, wasn't it? That was bad.
It was bad, Hags. It's about as bad as anything we've ever done. Whatever
No.
you've done, it's as bad as that.
Not like Chris Christopherson's third album.
Oh, bad. Worse. Worse.
No way!
Let me think.
So, where does this leave us?
We're here, ain't we?
What?
Where'd those trucks go?
Oh, no, Sarge, you can't be serious!
Yes, I am.
What? You want to go after the gold?
I'll never get any metal from the Army, will I?
You guys coming or what?
I'm not sure that this is happening for the right reasons.
Gold sweets, 24 carats. What kind of motivation do you need?
What do you think, Preston?
Hell, I guess I could use a couple million, same as everybody else.
Guys, wait up!
I think the trucks went up that way. I'm gonna catch up with them.
Sarge, Haggard's running away again.
Shit. Look at that.
I know, he runs like a girl.
No, I'm talking about something else. I bet we just got broadcasted live to every shooter in this God-forsaken country. But if we blow the antennas, can't track what you can't see.
It'll get the U.S. Army off us too, Sarge.
So this is where the plot sort of takes off. Up until now we've just been following orders, now we're making our own orders.
Stay down! This place is crawling with snipers.
Sarge really isn't kidding there. There are quite a few snipers around this area. Fortunately, we do have, a little bit of cover to move around in, and after they've shot once or twice, you should be able to pinpoint their position.
People pinned down.
They are pretty nasty though if you can't quite locate them, and it's really useful to actually move up and get as close to them as possible to reduce the advantage they have on you.
I spot them reds. Okay, blow the control box and move on to the next one.
One thing I haven't really talked about is sort of how Bad Company differs from other realistic shooters. It is quite obviously arcadey, but there are some sort of significant things that you might not notice at first glance. One of the things is the hit indicator which appears over the crosshair. There's a little semicircle that's red that appears just under your crosshair whenever you hit someone. Obviously that is entirely unrealistic, but it becomes extremely useful at times so you can actually tell when you're actually hitting someone. Because a lot of the action happens at sort of mid to long range, you never really get that close to people. It makes a lot of sense.
You think this is gonna work?
Of course it's gonna work. If they can't see us, they can't pick us up. If they can't pick us up, we can do whatever we want.
And that would be trying to steal a truck full of gold from the world's deadliest mercenary.
Well, it beats flipping burgers for a living.
I really hate to admit that that is an argument of quite impregnable logic.
What did you just say?
There's a fair amount of banter between sort of Haggard and Sweets, and Sarge occasionally gets involved as well. Often it just happens, you know, when you're on the way to places and there's a little bit of a cam. It sort of helps to lighten the mood, and it means that it's not, you know, absolutely monotonous gunplay. It lets the player sort of calm down a little bit after what they've been going on with. I was talking before about how the game has actually fairly mid to long range. It's definitely longer than most sort of arcade FPSs, like, you know, sort of classic Doom or Quake series or whatever. But you do tend to get a fair amount of variation, like here where you're shooting at extreme long range and actually you can barely see the people you're shooting at. And then, you know, you sort of get into the urban warfare and other sections which you've seen before where you're actually pretty close up. It does provide a nice sort of variation, and it does sort of lend to the, if you want to be switching weapons often and trying out different things, if for example you switch to a shotgun which isn't so useful at range, then it does have sections which, you know, are going to work for you.
Keep it up, Preston! Cover me, Prest! Hey, Sweets, you keeping an eye out for those trucks?
You know that greed's one of the 7 deadly sins, right?
And so is killing people.
No, actually, you're thinking about the 10 Commandments. Now, the 7 deadly sins are greed, avarice, lust...
Sweetwater, just shut up.
Absolutely, Sarge.
So these open fields are obviously a sniper's paradise. The snipers are fairly accurate, but they aren't 100%. If you're just peeking out from behind cover, then you'll have a good chance of seeing where the bullet comes from without actually taking them out.
Rocket! Give me suppressive fire!
One of the other advantages of the radar is that when you're sort of covered by a fallen tree like that, you do have a rough idea of where the enemies are. Although, having said that, that doesn't necessarily mean you'll be able to hit any of them.
They're blowing us to pieces! Oh, shit! Machine gun!
The emplaced weapons sort of provide an interesting gameplay feature. Some of the times you really do need to sort of flank around them, but a lot of the time you can actually just shoot the guy off it. Even if it's one of the armoured or covered emplacements, you can generally shoot them through the viewing slit if you're pretty careful.
Can you see him?
Here I was trying to sort of clear out some of the enemies that are nearby before I go blowing that antenna. It doesn't really matter which order you do it in, it's not exactly like you're going to be terribly vulnerable while blowing it up, but it just seemed sort of more natural to actually make sure the area was clear first.
There! That ought to screw up their tracking.
Yeah, Hags. No one will notice the gargantuan trail of destruction we left. You idiot. Anyway, now what, Sarge? Gold?
Yep.
I'm pretty sure that is a sort of badly placed conversation there, at least, you know, with the Sarge. Obviously, we have one more antenna to destroy, you know, marked in the objectives, so I guess that was supposed to be placed after the last antenna. We have a helicopter attacking us now, and they are a formidable enemy. They're pretty difficult to hit with any kind of regular weapon. The RPG, you're going to be really chancing it to actually hit them, because they move, you know, pretty fast. They're quite agile. swapped out for the power tool just so that, because we're now, using vehicles, even if I don't actually use the power tool, it's certainly useful to have it around to make sure that any damage I do take can be easily healed. We've got this conveniently placed AA gun, so when we find the helicopter we can start taking it down. It takes a fair amount of damage. The AA doesn't necessarily kill it in a couple of hits. One of the nice things I find about the AA gun though is that you can actually aim it down at ground level, take out any enemies in the houses nearby. You can see the hit indicator there that I am actually shooting some people. One of the vulnerabilities, of course, is that you absolutely cannot move, and the enemies do tend to take advantage of that.
Not bad. Not bad at all.
Yep. Not bad for a newbie. Hey, can I call you Preston, by the way?
Well, can he call you Gordon?
Hey, nobody calls me Gordon.
How about Elizabeth?
Elizabeth? Yes.
Liz?
I will accept Liz. But you better not call me it, or I will be very angry. And you wouldn't want to see me angry, Preston.
So I've got the power tool so that I can heal this vehicle up. The camera there was really awkward. The vehicle camera tends to be pretty good, seeing as most of the game is out in open areas, but the few times when you do actually have to go close to some buildings or whatever, it really tends to screw up. It won't actually clip through anything, but that does mean that it gets incredibly close into you, which is pretty useless for actually driving anywhere, especially when you're trying to reverse out like that.
Did you see that shot? Sniper, get down!
I'm not sure if they did it on purpose or not, but some of the AI in this game is pretty bad about getting out of the way of vehicles. I was deliberately going off-road here to see if I could find any enemies to run over, seeing as they tend to be pretty bad about getting out of your way. And sort of, again, making use of a rather unorthodox tactic. It's not too bad when you've got, a fair amount of cover like that. In between the two vehicles, there wasn't much chance of anyone shooting me, so I decided to take the risk. I must admit I do tend to do that a lot more than I say you should. That's pretty much just because it's so damn fun.
Hey, Hackett! He's getting better than you!
One of the things I think they did pretty well in the sort of level design is that they do tend to reuse prefabricated buildings and things quite often, but it's a credit to how well they sort of laid it out that you don't really tend to notice. I mean, obviously the guard towers are identical, but it's kind of what you expect, because it is after all a military outpost. It doesn't feel like it's the same area that you've seen before copy-pasted. It just feels like it's sort of standard setup of buildings in a new area.
Actually, forget Truckosaurus. If we find that gold, I'm gonna buy one of these.
That should keep the U.S. Army off our backs for a while. Let's go look for those trucks.
If we really find anything, it's equal shares, right?
Where do you think those trucks are going?
I think there's a harbor that way.
You know these things, and I don't. That's really weird.
Well, that's why I'm in charge.
Yeah, about that. Now that we're AWOL, you're not really a sergeant anymore, are you, Redford?
Either you do as I say, or I'm gonna have to beat your ass into submission.
Yeah, okay. It was just, a technical question, Sarge.
Well, don't ask me no technical questions.